It was only once the building was vacated that workers were able to investigate the building structure and compare the original architectural plans with what's actually there. Early investigations helped to plan for the vital work needed to strengthen the structure. But workers soon found that a lot of what was indicated on the floor plans was not in fact what was there.
I thought there was going to be a substantial footing, but it's just a brick footing holding up the wall. It's not what's on the plans. But yeah, it just seems interesting how it's a brick footing and the dirt subsided underneath it, but the whole building hasn't moved.
But not all of the discoveries were from as far back as the original construction. Exploration into some of the building's ceiling cavities uncovered something quite bizarre.
Found some minutes back from 1957. There was an old timber crate up there as well. So it sort of looks like from the findings up there today that bit of ink, some ink pads.
Imagine if your teacher threw one of them at you. You'd be able to pay attention.
Down below, archaeologists watched carefully as workers used heavy machinery to carefully lift the concrete slab and expose ground not seen since the building's original construction. What they uncovered was of the utmost importance because it provided a link not only to the 1920s construction methods, but importantly confirmed the location and form of the building's much talked about foundations.
What we're finding here is that how it was constructed actually differs from a lot of the construction drawings, and so part of our role is to make sure that we properly understand through the other investigations that are going on with the team while working down here to plan for the conservation work, that we actually follow behind and record the footings, the construction and all of the evidence that remains here that tells us the true story of how the building was built so that we can maintain it into the future.
The construction of the foundations was sort of old school in the sense a lot of it was done by hand, by men. What we found is the formwork around the concrete pillars and the holes that the concrete pillars were poured into. And most of the time they then put the concrete in, although we did find some formwork that didn't have the concrete put in place. And unlike today, they actually left the formwork in place after the concrete had been poured. And we're not sure why they did that, and we're also not sure why they left one of these formed up areas. Again, we found some early photos, and even though it's hard to see, we can actually see the formwork sticking out of the ground. So the concrete pillars haven't been poured yet, but the wooden formwork is in the ground and protruding above the ground.
And is there any documentation of what was happening at the time? Is there any indication on plans as to what they were supposed to be doing?
We do have some records for some guys who actually were digging the holes for the pillars.
Right.
And they talk about how they're digging them by hand, and some of them go down 15, 20 metres.
At the time, it was considered a privilege to work on the construction of City Hall, or as it was more commonly referred to at the time, the superstructure. What archaeologists would find next revealed evidence about the construction of the superstructure, which incorporated a very different approach, using what were new and innovative technologies at the time.
There's a substantial object in there that is possibly truncated, but we'll know more when we investigate tomorrow.
When we first uncovered the structure, we weren't 100% sure what it was, and we thought we knew it was some form of lifting device, or we thought it was a lifting device of some type, and we thought it might have been related to the original work for the foundations of the building, which were quite innovative at the time. And so we excavated this middle bit, and this is what we came up with. So we got both beams, and almost like it, just before they finished everything, they laid all the proper concrete. They were still using this, and then they came in and just threw rough concrete on it at the last minute. So we got the two beams, and it looks like the base of some lifting device, whether it's a gantry, a windlass, or something. We're not sure yet. We found a number of photos of the early phases of construction of the superstructure of the building, and I was looking through these photographs, and I started to see images that looked familiar from what we had in the ground, and it became obvious to me at that stage that what we had was actually the base of one of the cranes that were being used to build the superstructure of the City Hall. When they decommissioned the crane, when they'd finished doing the building, they took away all the metal structures, but then decided to leave the base in the ground and they covered it with a concrete slab and left it there. So the archaeology has complemented both the records that we have from newspapers and also early photographs about how the building was being built. Finding this material adds to our understanding of the workers at the time, what they were doing, how they were going about their work, and building techniques and the way the building was being done 80 years ago. And it's because it adds to the ongoing story of a really iconic building for Brisbane.
And it's not just the archaeologists helping to put together the missing pieces of the puzzle. Brisbane residents are coming forward to share important information about the original construction through their family connections to City Hall. This is your copy of the photograph that was circulated.
Yeah, that's right.
With your dad clearly visible perched on the beam at the back there.
That's right.
What was the story you were told about this photograph?
Well, all that I know about it is that he worked here as a boilermaker in the structural part of the business, and I just know that from those the 24-25 was the year that he worked here. Whether it was the start of one year, the end, I don't know, but it was that period.
Alan, your dad is in the photograph as well.
Yes.
What was his job on the construction?
He was the leading hand. They had foreman and they had leading hand. Foreman was the first in charge, and that the workers had to go to the foreman for things, or the leading hand, and that's why he wore a tie.
Coming up, the work on the roof and the work to plug the leaks gradually eating away at the bones of the building.